Welcome to Offset. Larry and the Big Man, two-time Stanley Cup champion and Sportsnet hockey analyst Jay Caulfield, along with Dave Ricchini. Gentlemen, good to be back together. We want to thank One Team Media, Ryan Jorgen, Mark Coddington, also Logan Douglas producing this episode. Brian Hess is the mastermind behind One Team Media. Thanks to him and Odyssey, my employer, 5 radio stations here in Pittsburgh, Michael Spacciapoli.
Also, the Rourke Automotive Group, Dave Rourke, a great sponsor for us. Also, Henderson Brothers with Tom Grealish. Thank you both for being a big part of what we're doing.
When it comes to protecting what matters most, your business, your people, and your future, you need more than an insurance policy. You need a partner. That's Henderson Brothers. Experience the power of partnership at hendersonbrothers.com.
Yeah, future, you know? You should look into voice work.
I don't know. That's a tough field. Meanwhile, gentlemen, we got a lot to discuss. This scandal in the NBA is shaking the core of sports betting. There are probably other sports, somehow, some way, there are people involved in whatever, but this has opened Pandora's box, because the one thing all the sports betting entities want you to feel comfortable with is that your bet is trusted and real. And this has shaken the belief in that and may alter, even if it's temporary, the amount of money that people are willing to bet, and certainly when it comes to the NBA. So, David, you've been doing research on this. Explain for people that don't know the details how big and widespread it is.
Yeah, in the NBA, it was 3 players called out and 1 coach, former players and 1 coach. Chauncey Billups, who was the coach of the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, he was more so involved in apparently being investigated for rigged poker games. But there are 2 other players, Terry Rozier and Damon Jones, a former player and a former coach, that basically being called out for providing inside information to somebody making bets or a group making bets. And if the thing is now with the betting apps and everything and how easy it is to do on your phone, you can make bets on, for instance, for basketball, player to score under so many points, under so many assists. So if you're getting inside information and that player is only going to play 5 minutes or is dinged up or might not play at all, and you can relay that to somebody on the outside, you can put down a large amount of money on it. And that's what happened with, they called back, these investigations going back years. So they referred back to a game in March of 2023 in which Rozier left the game early, and there was over $200,000 bet on his unders in that game. And then Damon Jones, who's an assistant with the Lakers, gave inside information about, hey, LeBron James isn't playing today. And when that happens, that's going to affect the spread. And if you can get out in front of it, you can get the better of the number. So it made waves last week. I'm sure this is not the end of what we're going to hear from it, but it happens. We saw the Ohtani stuff. Now again, he wasn't involved in it, but with his translator. And just this past baseball season, the Cleveland Guardians, 2 of their pitchers are still being investigated for it. And again, you go back to pitching, you can bet on the first pitch of an at-bat. So think about that. It couldn't even affect the game, but you can bet if that pitch is going to be a ball or a strike. How easy is it to be influenced if you're a professional athlete, if you're looking to make a little extra money? So it's tough. It's hypocritical because how many sponsors now? Every single game you watch, there's an ESPN bet or there's a FanDuel Sports Network that televises these games. So it's a dicey area.
To build on what Dave just mentioned, Larry, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it was taboo. You wouldn't even talk about, hey, my parlay tonight is this, or
right,
whatever sport you're involved with. You wouldn't even discuss it. Now they get the live ticker, everything that's going on. You walk in, so it is a different world. I find it amazing. By the way, I heard Antonio Gates' name mentioned now that came out this morning that he might have been involved in the poker game side. Right, that is, like you said, that's a little bit of a different play. That's getting guys, from what we hear, getting guys to be part of a group, and that's tied to way deeper stuff.
Yes,
well, that's pretty deep.
Organized crime,
too.
Yeah, somebody said it's like NBA meets The Sopranos in this case.
Yeah,
they had these poker tables apparently that had the ability with cards down to read the cards, and there was someone orchestrating. They brought in what they call fish or whales guys with a lot of money that want to play poker. They're thinking it's a legitimate game. They use famous people to lure them into the games, which is common. A lot of guys like to play poker or, entertain with sports betting, obviously. But this was pretty nefarious. And then when guys would lose a bunch of money and if they couldn't pay right away, that's when the organized crime people showed up. I mean, this is...
Are there any... Was there one guy like $1.8 million he lost in one sitting?
Right.
Like, I'm trying to figure out whether you have something that if you know those, I don't know enough on that side of it, that why would Chauncey Billups be involved in that? Like, unless you owe somebody something that you're going to go in and help them. I don't understand that. I'm not sure how that got involved, because I heard some of the guys that they were bringing in that were the quote unquote celebrity weren't even good poker players. They were doing things that another poker player might go, that's not the norm, or that's not how a good player would play. I didn't get it. And the other part that I really don't understand is a guy's making millions of dollars a year, and he's going to throw something or come out of a game for, I think Rozier was helping, the word was he was helping a group of his friends or tight friends that they made money on what he did. I forget who was the brother, the two brothers, NBA. You remember the first one that got caught 2 years ago? He was making bets for like some low number. It didn't even make sense that you would put your career at
Why
risk.
would you risk everything?
It makes no sense to me at all.
Your career, your integrity. You have tens of millions on paper that you've made. Why would you do this? Well, there's a suggestion that some of these guys got lured into something, and this was kind of what they had to do to keep it going and pay it off. But I'm sure there'll be a lot more as they dig in.
I'm looking up, but like Chauncey Billups made over $100 million playing in his career.
Right.
Now he's coaching the NBA.
So I figure you still got to be making $3 to $7 million a year coaching the NBA.
$100 million, and you've got to do this. Something doesn't add up.
Well, there's the one player.
Jay Porter, is that who you're talking about?
He have two brothers. They have brothers, and he was the one that got caught. The one guy that got suspended. He's gone. He made a low bet, like a bet that was under like $1,000, and he's making millions playing the game. It's kind of wild. I understand there could be a disease to it or a problem with it, but why you're doing when it never even entered the minds of when we were. I mean, we couldn't even go near that kind of thing when we were playing, and now it's a whole different world, right? How everybody can bet on their phones and all that.
Players weren't allowed to be walking in a legal casino. Period.
Yeah.
You couldn't make an appearance there. Yeah. To give you one example, they wanted to separate it. Now all the sports are locked in. They're big supporting partners, financially. They're big sponsors. So the world is different, but this is shaking up that.
So we'll see. They say just the tip of the iceberg so far, right?
The tip. That said, big man blitz.
I could have been part of that. That could have been. Yeah, look, for me, I'm going to go from my big man blitz and things that were really, I felt difference maker. And again, something that we went in over the beginning part of the week. I don't understand the calls that were missed. First of all, there's the offensive pass interference against Tucker Kraft, the push off. When they make it, it's in the wide open. How they missed that, I don't know. That didn't stop the Steelers. They didn't tackle them anyway after the fact. But the missed call is one thing. The ones at the line of scrimmage, which I'm blown away by, I thought it was the beginning drive of the second half, third quarter. Steelers have the ball. It's 3rd and 8, and Aaron Rodgers draws them offside. So he thinks he's got a free play, which he does better than anybody, which almost should have been a completion. We talked about that too. But that they don't make that call when I will bet you everybody in the stadium saw it. We saw it on TV. You didn't need to be told that they jumped. They jumped. They don't get the call. It would have been 3rd and 3. Maybe you get points off of that drive, and there's a different outcome. They lost momentum at that point. That no call.
They even looked at it.
Yeah, I don't even understand how that can be a no call. I will say, Steelers on the other end, Broderick Jones pulled early. You could see his whole number on his back basically as he was moving, and they don't make the call there either. I have there's somebody down the line. It blows my mind on a big stage that you miss those calls. So that's part of my big man blitz. I got one little part. I hate the shot. I hate the move low on the knees of a receiver, tight end, running back out of the backfield, catching the ball. I understand that if you hit them high, you're going to get penalized. I still think if you polled every player that's in those positions, they'd rather you go high on them than take their knees out.
Like Pat Fryermuth got submarine.
Yeah. And especially when it's a plant leg, he's not looking, and look, the D-backs, that's what they do. They don't want to take on a 250-pound tight end either. They're smaller, but it's a hit that I can't stand in the game. And I know they penalize for some D-backs. You don't know what are you going to do? If I go high, they give me a personal foul. If I go low, I'm taking the guy's knees out. Well, they're going low. And I hate the play. They're the ones that I hate because your lifeline, your sports lifeline is your legs. And now somebody could argue with me, well, it's your brain too. So I'm not downplaying the high hit, but most guys would not want you to take their knees out.
Well, how about above the knees and below the head?
Right. Doesn't have to. There you go, Larry. Yeah, right. Doesn't have to.
But you got D-backs that are sometimes
small.
half the size of a tight end.
You don't want to hit.
So,
Like Darnell Washington.
Yeah, he might be different. He's a lineman running down the field. So but that is they're my two things. The missed calls are unbelievable to me, and I hate the low hit. Again, like you said, below the knee, taking guys' knees out. Tough one. It's career ending for.
I'm curious to see how if they change NFL replay assist, because right now you can't use it to throw a flag. You can use it to talk about a flag that's out there. So, especially in the trenches, offsides.
Well, this is something we've never heard before as fans, where the referee in the game is announcing the replay assist to the fans in the bowl.
Yeah.
They've never done that before, and they did it a few times for the Steeler game. And
I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say, by the way, they didn't even answer Chris Collinsworth last night or the other night on Sunday Night Football. He kept saying, I thought if you have inside of 2 minutes is the only time it's looked at. They remember the play. It was the Steeler, right? The Steeler
Wilson touchdown.
Yeah. So why did they look at it now? It's above 2 minutes, and it was a scoring play. I get they should.
Yeah.
But so nobody's still clear on what's going on. To your point, Dave and Larry,
wait till the NFL incorporates the pitch clock. That'll be next. All right, I want to switch to college football just for a moment. Pitt, 4-game win streak, 18-year-old quarterback, true freshman, Mason Heinchel, 423 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. They end up beating for the first time in over 2 decades, NC State. Now they go on the road to Stanford. Stanford struggling. There's a possibility that they could get their 7th win. They are undefeated in October, and yet Penn State and WVU went 0-6 in October. A stat I never thought would ever be possible. That said, the Penn State Nittany Lions, if they can somehow find a way at the shoe and upset Ohio State, would be a moral victory for the season and might save a job or two.
Real quick on Pitt, one thing I found interesting, 4-1 in the ACC now, only 2 teams with a better record. And one of those teams is Virginia, who lost to NC State, but it was a non-conference game. So Virginia's 4-0 in conference, lost to NC State.
That's a great point.
But it was a non-conference game.
And that's an oddity in the way they do this. Because there's a game, and this happened with a couple of other teams, where they ruled it a non-conference. Since there aren't 2 divisions,
right? It's
one big ACC. So that's how they kind of try to level the playing field, and anybody in the ACC can beat anybody.
Yeah. The Penn State, both Penn State and Ohio State coming off buys. One thing going into it, Penn State said their, offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki said, you can't reshape the offense, but you have 2 weeks to try to make some changes. So interesting to see if they already try to establish a run, but Terry Smith talked about getting some of the younger receivers, some of the freshmen into the game plan more to try to stretch the field. But it's going to be a tough test for Ethan Grunkemeyer because you're going into Ohio State and a Matt Patricia defense. They're allowing 216 yards total per game, best in the NCAA. They've allowed 41 points this season. That's the Steelers give that up in a weekend anymore. And the look-ahead line, if you would have looked ahead of this game, because at one point they were top 3, both 2 top 3 teams in the country. It was Penn State plus 3.5. Now they're getting 3 touchdowns on the road in Columbus.
Boy, I never thought that would be possible in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's a sad state right there until they get it. They got to right the ship and do it quick for all the Penn State alumni to get to get happy again. I know the Pitt thing is a great story. It's a great. I mean, it's a tough decision. You got to hand it to Pat Narduzzi for making him. You're paying a guy $1 million to be your quarterback. You finally had what went on was enough, and you make a move. And I think the way this is playing itself out, it was obviously a great move, and they've rallied around it completely. I mean, there's a buzz about what they're doing. They just need to keep themselves on a roll and see how it plays out. But it's a great story here. It's great for around here.
Well, after the game in the locker room, I congratulated Coach Narduzzi. We do a post interview, and I said, "And you're also bowl eligible." He goes, "I don't care about being bowl eligible right now. We just want to stack wins." So, coach speak, but he doesn't make that move in the considerations they now have to make as coaches because of the economics, which never existed before with NIL money. That was a bold move, but it may have saved him and saved the team the season.
I said, fingers crossed that they stay on a great roll. Then it'll be really interesting in the offseason for, what everybody, the money, the college football world is a completely different space now than ever before, but it's certainly exciting. And I said, a very bold move, and they did it. And I thought it was tough because of what the money was going to the initial quarterback. So, great space. Let's hope it goes well this weekend.
We went over the predictions for the Steelers-Colts game in our Tuesday episode, but to reiterate, Jay says Indy 35-21, Dave 24-20 Colts. I go 24-21. I hate to do it, but the Colts this Jonathan Taylor's going to be hard to stop. So
hope we're wrong.
That said, Dave Ricchini, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Larry.
Appreciate your input and time to bring on a very, very special Pittsburgh. I call him a Pittsburgh icon, even though his career is long and storied, a newly minted Pittsburgh Penguin Hall of Fame member in Ron Francis. So we welcome the one and only Ron Francis, Ron in town to be inducted into the Penguins Hall of Fame. Ron, must have been a special night for you in your world as a player for 23 seasons. Now as an executive, you've worked all sides of the game. But how special is it to be part of the Pittsburgh Penguins Hall of Fame?
It was extremely special. That was probably the most fun years of my career. We were fortunate enough to win 2 Stanley Cups. I still say the best team I ever played on was 93, and we didn't win. We got upset in the second round by the Islanders. But the time I spent here playing in front of the people of Pittsburgh was tremendous. I absolutely loved it, and to be honored going into the Hall of Fame was extremely special for me and my family.
So, Ronnie, I have to say, okay, I was with you at your NHL Hall of Fame, with you the other night for the Penguin Hall of Fame, but you also have, let me see, let's go. You're in the North Carolina Hall of Fame, the only hockey player, I believe, in that Hall of Fame.
I think Roddy went in.
Oh, did he go in?
Okay,
so
it was the first to go in.
First to go in is that. But the one big one, there's many more. I mean, it's Jersey, they're in the rafters, and Hartford and Carolina, you name it, everything that goes with that. But what did you do this past Friday night before you came to town? Let's talk about that Hall of Fame that you went into as well.
Yeah, I got honored and inducted into the National Italian American Sports Hall of Fame, which is in Chicago. And it's, you look at the list of athletes that are in there. I think Joe DiMaggio was the first member. Tommy Lasorda. Some names are just incredible. So, it was great to be a part of this. A lot of guys from my hometown, Tony and Phil Esposito, Junior Briacco, Lou Nanny, all from the Sioux that are in that Hall of Fame as well, too. So the food was great, as you can imagine. And I had a choice of 2 stories. Which one? I wasn't sure which one to go with, but I went with my Bill Cowher bocce story, and it was a big hit. So,
well, congratulations. Yeah. And I always say, big man, in Pittsburgh, you're a half person from everyone. So my late father-in-law started the Pittsburgh chapter of the National Italian American Sports Hall of Fame. And you're right, there's some huge names involved. That's a big feather. And, for all the things you have done, that's pretty cool.
That was really
cool. Alla familia, family.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, it was great. They give us a nice medal, and you had to do a 2-minute speech. So the story I wanted to tell is sort of get across how people understand my neighborhood. Bill Cowher is a dear friend, and after he retired from coaching here, he moved down to Raleigh. So we were at the same club playing golf. We were out for dinner one night. There was 4 couples, and the girls started talking. We should get together and play tennis. And Bill is probably the most competitive guy I know, and he's sitting across the table from me, and he looks at me and he goes, "Tennis." He goes, "We should play a real sport. We should play bocce." And I said, "Bill, before you open your mouth," I said, "I'll kick your butt in bocce." and he looks at me and he said, "No, you won't. I play at the beach all summer. I'll kick your butt." I said, "Bill," I said, "let me explain something to you." I said, Next door neighbor was Teddy Casagrande. Teddy had a bocce court in his backyard. Across the street, Johnny Nardo, Luigi Gazzola, Johnny Guido, Flavio Basato, Romano. He said, "You're making those names up." I said, "Bill, I can't make those names up." So we were fortunate enough to play a couple of days later. And as I said to the Italians in that room that night, the guy who played on the beach in the summer wasn't a match for the guy who grew up with Teddy Casagrande bocce court in his backyard. So it was a fun night and a great story to tell.
I think that I think what Ronnie's been through, when Ronnie first came here, when we go back to what that trade was all about, and we all know what that meant to the Penguins, and with Olfie coming with you and Grant Jennings, and certainly losing great, John Cullen was is still a great friend today. But what that meant, I mean, Ronnie, your history, what you meant to the Hartford Whalers, I mean, that part alone, that part of your career where you're the captain, I don't know if I've come across a more complete player that's ever played the game in the NHL for what you did in all phases of it. And then to come here and have two lines where you think you've got Mario and Ronnie and the wingers that we had, I don't know if there's ever pick your poison. Who are you going to defend?
Yeah, no, it was a crazy year leading up to the trade for me in Hartford. I was in my option year of the contract. We had a new owner. Let's just say we didn't see eye to eye on some things. He called me the one time and wanted me kind of go behind our doctors' backs and stuff. And I said I wouldn't do it. And he slammed the phone down on my ear. And I looked at my wife, who was 7 months pregnant, and said, "I think I might have got us traded." And sure enough, things started happening after that. They stripped the C off my jersey, started saying things about myself and my wife in the community, which weren't true. And I ended up getting traded to Pittsburgh. I come in and, it's a delicate situation. First time I've been traded, as you mentioned, Mario was out the first part of that year. Johnny Cullen helped carry the team at that point. And Johnny was not only, big with the team, but also very close with Kevin and Rex and a lot of the players. And so it's delicate kind of coming in. And I remember Patty Patterson had a birthday party for Barry. It was his 30th birthday, and we were there a couple games into the trade. And, you're having a drink or two and loosening up. And guys started saying, "Hey, you know what? We really miss Cully. Cully's a great guy, but we're really glad you're here." And it kind of helped me feel kind of at ease. And of course, I had Alfie, and Alfie's like, "Get over it, suck it up, move on, let's go." And, but it was, it was exciting as hell. And to think I had Kevin Stevens, one of the best power forwards I think ever to play in the NHL, and then Joey Mullum, I think, was injured initially, and he came back, and then that was my right winger, and it's a hell of a line to be your second line with Joey and Kevin. So really a lot of fun to be a part of those teams.
Yeah, because I reference it because you look at it, we watch lineups and watch the game today, and top lines are always getting the best, whether it be talent versus talent, or you're going to go against the best defensive forwards, or you're certainly getting the first pair of defensemen. We immediately became a nightmare for how you're going to what are you going to defend and what decisions you need to make as a coach. I think Ronnie, obviously we all knew that. Everybody felt that and knew it. And I think how you summed up the thing with Cully, it was perfect, because that is how everybody felt. But also everybody knew that what was at stake and what we were looking at as we were moving forward.
Well, also another little tidbit was when I got traded here, I get the call, I think, Sunday night at 9:30. I'm dealing with media on the phone. My wife's trying to pack my stuff. My parents were down, thank goodness, to help. Caitlin, I think, was 4 or 5 weeks old at the time, our firstborn. My wife had a C-section. I had a flight the next morning at 7 a.m. from Hartford to Pittsburgh. I had a morning skate, and after the morning skate, Bob Johnson calls me in his office, and he said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm good." I said, "I just want you to know we have this tall French kid here." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "He's our number one centerman." And I'm like, "Bob, that's great. I have no problem with that." I said, "I'm just here to help you win. Let's go win hockey games." He's like, "Oh, okay, good." But it was kind of funny to me that he felt he had to have that conversation. But, it was, the locker room was, as you know, you were in it, just a great bunch of guys. We don't win without Mario, but we don't win without guys who killed penalties and block shots. The guys that didn't get a lot of credit, the Phil Borks and Troy Loney's, and you have Brian Trottier as a third line center. You had Jaromir Jagr on the fourth line wing at the time. Yeah. So a deep team, but great bunch of guys and a lot of fun to be a part of it.
Many hockey experts thought your acquisition made the difference, final piece to the puzzle. And it was magical times here in Pittsburgh because I'm a native, loved hockey from being a kid, and to bring the cup to Pittsburgh and to do it back to back. I don't think anybody here will ever forget what that felt like, and your addition to this team meant the world. What was Bob Johnson like? He was so beloved by the fans too, and it was an unbelievable thing you guys were able to do after his passing too.
Yeah, no, I got to play with his son Mark previously in Hartford, so I knew Mark a bit, and then obviously Bob coaching. I hadn't really met him till I got here, but they always say the glass is half full. With Bob's glass, I think it was 7 7/8 full all the time. I mean, he was always upbeat, always positive. I told a story the other day, Big Man, if you remember at the first Cup run, we lost the first 2 games to Boston in the 3rd round. And, Kevin Stephen, they put a microphone in front of him, and Kevin's not going to be shy. He's like, we're winning the series, we're coming back. And so we're in the locker room the next day, and I don't know if you remember this, we're all kind of stretching, and Bob's trying to pump the guys up, and he's talking about, stretching, it's great for you. You ever go to the zoo? You go to the zoo, you see the lion, the king of the jungle, stretches every day. And then Tommy Barrasso goes, if he's so smart, what is he doing in the zoo in the first place, right? And the locker room kind of lightened up and laughed. But that was Bob. Everything was positive and upbeat, and just a great human being, and obviously a sad loss for the organization and for his family when that happened the following year. But, in tribute to him, the guys rallied together and found a way to win another one.
I have to go back to the Hartford thing because I find that amazing that you think somebody who's been there for 10 years, that you think you can try and destroy a reputation by what was going on with that. To me, it's, you've heard of different things going on in the sporting world of what might happen. That might have been one of the dumbest moves that I've seen as far as trying to get an athlete to break a little bit, take the C away. You said, to me, I get it. I mean, I don't get it ever, but I mean, that part to me is amazing, Ronnie, that they could even go on really with somebody that's so well respected in that community. It didn't make any sense to me when I heard it and what was going on.
I think what they wanted was me to say I want out, right? If I say I want out, it's easy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to make it easy at that point. So they had to do that. And the ironic part, EJ was the GM at the time, and he'll tell you today that he was told by the owner, either he goes or you go. So, he had to make the trade. For me, 3 months later, I'm hoisting the Stanley Cup. So it actually worked out pretty good.
Well, you had guys too, like good friends, still close friends with me, Dave Tippett, players you had in Hartford, Kevin Dineen, and then certainly you go from Quenville and across the board. So many great players that maybe didn't get that opportunity. You getting into Pittsburgh, certainly you said changed the trajectory of as far as success winning championships, but so many great players in Hartford though too.
Yeah, no, and a lot of them still around. I mean, Joe Quenville's coaching, Kevin Dineen was coaching, Al Samuelson was coaching, Bradshaw was coaching, Radley Lattiseur, John Anderson, Mike Lee was an agent, Ray Ferraro still doing broadcasting. And I know I'm missing guys here, but there was Dean Evison's actually coaching now in Columbus still. So many of those Whaler guys, and it was kind of a unique environment. We kind of grew up together.
Yeah,
right. We're all young and kind of growing together. And after games, we played in the mall, so there was restaurants in the mall. We'd all go sit in the back room together with the girls and kind of, talk about the game. And I think that sort of spurred a lot of interest in everybody sort of staying involved in the game. And it's great today, because everybody's still in the game, you see each other a lot, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. Like coming to Pittsburgh, I get to see you, former teammate. Not that we don't talk every week on our football pool. That's another story. But
you do.
That it was just a special time for that group of guys. And it just got to the point where, you might get people, to believe some bad things about me, but you're not going to do that with my wife. And so it just sort of happened. It's part of the game, and you move on. And like I said, ended up being special for me to win a cup that year and again the following year.
Yep.
What has your experience been like in Pittsburgh? Here you come to Pittsburgh, really challenging situation in Hartford, as you both have pointed out, but you come here, you hoist the Stanley Cup not once but twice. What was your experience coming to Pittsburgh and meeting all these Yinzers, me among them?
No, it's I learned early about Pittsburghese, so yeah, that was great. Yins guys going down and watch the Steelers and Eagles. Yeah, it was. I love that. I said it numerous times. My dad was a steelworker. My hometown was a steelworker. I know Pittsburgh, even at that time, was no longer a steel town, but the mentality of the people, right? Hardworking, honest, loyal. For me, it was like being in my hometown. It was with the people that I grew up with, and everybody says they're fans and stuff. For me, I just love the people of Pittsburgh, and I think they kind of liked the way I played and how I went about my business, and it was a perfect fit for me. So it was great to win cups and everything else, but the time we spent in Pittsburgh was fantastic.
I'm curious. So the other night, inducted into the Penguins Hall of Fame. I love that they brought it back.
Yeah.
And Jay, you're part of that. What was that emotion like Saturday night for you?
It was great. Especially with Scotty and EJ, and then my first left winger in Pittsburgh with Artie. Artie's the best, and just being around that. The organization was first class. Kyle Dubas is from my hometown. Kyle's grandmother and grandfather. My mom was actually in their wedding. They were dear friends. My grandmother and grandfather. I played against Kyle's dad growing up, Mark. So I knew Kyle, and we've known each other since he started with the Sioux. So got a lot of respect for Kyle. And then getting to see some former teammates around. Randy Hillier was there. Rex was there. Craig Patrick was there. Mario stopped by to say hello in the suite during the game. So it was great seeing all the faces, but being back in the city and being out on the ice, I was here for Yager's jersey retirement, which I thought was outstanding. And again, with this one, the organization was first class start to finish, the way they treated myself and my family. And it was an exciting night and loved being a part of the Pens Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think when Mario came back to the suite that night and during the game, I was kind of doing my stuff that I had to do. But when he gives that little nod, like that's first class, like he was really, he doesn't say too much, right?
No, he's quiet, yeah.
And then when he made that move, like that was, like you said, that was first class. Like he really, it was great to see it, great to see who was part of it. And I think when we looked at the highlights, I think Mario and I were looking up at the board and they showed up when they were doing little things, video tributes. Ronnie had the best fake shot pass ever in the history of the game, and they kept showing it because you kept feeding Artie with that all the time, and Kevin would bury it, but truly the art and the gift of the little things that made you the player that you were. But those highlights for me were always something we can almost remember them, and how many years ago? But I can remember when we see the clip of it. It's great to see. You talk about like being like the king in the face-off circle, all the things that led you to be. Who you are. When you go back and think about your game and you knew you were working on like face-offs and things like that, how'd you learn it, or did you just pick it up right away? What made you that good at it?
Yeah, I don't know if I really kind of learned it other than just sort of picking it up. My dad never really pushed me in hockey. I don't think he never really played at an elite level, but we would sit at the kitchen table after game and stuff and kind of had a hockey board and, kind of you understand as you get into school and learn geometry, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And I didn't exactly skate fast, so I was trying to anticipate where it was going to go and get to that line. But the only thing he ever stressed was an assist was, just as important as a goal, or a defensive play was just as important as a goal. So to me, that was something I took pride in, was just all facets of the game, whether it was the offensive zone, the defensive zone, face-offs, penalty kill, and power play. I thought it was a part of it, and just love being on the ice and playing the game.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you're 1,249 assists, second all time to Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, no, I mean that's longevity, that's the skill set, that's everything. But again, you just mentioned it about being how important it is for any side of it. I think Ronnie, to me, that's first of all one of the 100 greatest players of all time, being in that top 100 in the first 100 years of the NHL. Look at your point total, like where it's at, 1798. To me, I find all those stats we talk about every night. We talk about Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and in current Penguins today. Those numbers, it would have been something we would have had a discussion on every night. Another milestone, another this and that. I find it amazing about, today players are playing longer, right? Because of what they do and how they train. Ronnie, I said 23 years. Larry mentioned it earlier, but the numbers that you have and who you play with, but how you made them happen, to me, it's phenomenal.
Well, I could have had 1250 because Artie told a story the other night. He said the first time we went down, it was a couple months earlier. The one they're showing was in the playoffs in double overtime against Washington in the playoffs, and I faked the shot and slid it over to him, and he scored. But he tells the story. He said, it was like 2 months later, we were going down at 2-1. I saw you go like that, and I thought you were shooting it. So I went to the net hard, and then it came right back where I was. And he said, so I learned that overtime, I didn't do that. So we kind of joked about that. But no, it's, you play a long time. You're fortunate to play with a lot of good players. And like I said before, I don't know if I was good or stupid to play that long, but I love playing the game and competitive as hell. I love watching the NHL face off with Sid when he said, they asked him about, winning. And he said, I don't know anything else. I'm probably not the most outgoing, guy, but, I'm competitive as hell. And it's kind of in a quiet way. And I hate to lose at anything. My wife will tell you I cheated to beat my mother-in-law in Trivial Pursuit because I didn't want to lose, right? I hate losing. And, it was fun. I got a chance to talk with Sid the other night before the game. And, I told him he can slow down. He doesn't have to catch me this season. He can give it a couple of years before he catches me. But I just always admired the way he played. I certainly admire the way he handles himself off the ice. Everything he does is first class. So, but there's no doubt, a guy like that is going to catch you at some point. I joked with the Yogs. When I retired, I was 4th leading scorer. I told him I should have traded for him and sat him out a little bit more so he wouldn't have passed me. But, it happens, but it's certainly fun playing with all the guys I play with that help contribute to those numbers.
Yeah. I think I do know the intensity of Ronnie because, like you said, we have bet Monday Night Football for how many years right now? Going back to the 90s. And first of all, such a good friend that we do keep it going with the schedules that he has. And he'll send a text like right before the opening night. And he go, "You ready for another year?" I go, "Yeah," because I said the other night when we were doing a show last week, I think I owe him 29 dinners. It's 29. We're playing for dinner. So him and his wife, he and Mary Lou, Alicia and I owe them 29 dinners at least. So he's very competitive. If I ever get up on him in a given year, his texts are they're like daggers. Like so. Yeah. So we all can relate to that. We get it, Roddy. We truly do.
But I'm curious also, you have this great playing career. I thought about in baseball, like Derek Jeter for the Yankees, and then he becomes an executive. And in a way, it erases all that because now you face a whole new challenge. And you've done that. You've done it successfully, including with a budding franchise in Seattle. So what was that like to take your playing days and then transition into an executive level in hockey?
Yeah, the first year I finished in 2004, and then we had the lockout. So that was 1 year away. And then the second year I kind of stayed away too. I just want to get some time away. And then Jim Rutherford and I kept having conversations. And then finally I said, Jim, I think I'm ready. So he said, what do you want to do? I said, what do you have? He said, you can represent us in the community or you can kind of do player development. I said, if I'm working, I want to learn the business. I want to work. No offense, but I don't really want to shake hands and kiss babies. I want to get in there. So he started me my first year. I think my last year as a player, I made $5.2 million. My first year working for Jim in player development, I made $35,000. And it was a test to see if I was going to work, right? And that's, but I feel fortunate. I got to be assistant, player development, an assistant GM, and then he asked me to go on the bench. So I was on the bench for 2.5 years as a coach, and then back to assistant GM. So I wore a lot of hats, learned a lot about the business. It's not easy. As a player, we can get out there and we get frustrated. We can whack somebody across from, but you can't do that when you're upstairs in the booth. And they always seem to have a camera on you, so you got to make sure you're not throwing chairs or throwing water bottles because they always seem to find you when you're doing that. So, but for me, that was the exciting part. I really didn't want to coach. Everybody said that's closest to being on the ice, but I was on the bench. I didn't sense that. I liked the jigsaw puzzle and put things together. And being a player and being in the locker room for 23 years, you kind of get a sense of what the guys are going through. So you have a feeling, hey, maybe it's time to go down there and give the guy a hug, or maybe it's go down there and give the guy a little stern talking to. So I enjoy that. It's certainly not easy, but that's been fun for me in this part of the business as well.
Sounds like it goes back to those days with the little board on the table.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot of stuff. The interesting part with Seattle was it was a new franchise. We're trying to build an arena, which was supposed to cost us $650 billion, and then COVID hit. And I don't know how familiar your listeners are with our project. It was the Oki Arena, and the roof is a historical monument. So we had to keep the roof in place. We took the glass panels out, refurbished those, put them back in because they were historical as well. And then they basically ripped everything out underneath the roof and dug down another 70 feet and then rebuilt a brand new arena from the ground up and attached the roof. With COVID, it went to about $1.2 billion. Our Oilers spent $650 million on a new franchise, $300 million in Coachella Valley for our minor league building there, $6.5 for that franchise, and $100 million for a new practice. And not one dime of it was public funding. To do it during COVID was interesting. At the time, I couldn't really get to Seattle as much. I'm sitting in Raleigh. I have carpet samples. I have paint samples. I have tile samples. I'm trying to design what the locker room's going to look like with Ricky Olczyk, my assistant GM. We're trying to work with Lance Lopez and our staff on the practice facility and where we're going to put things and do things. And, it's a lot of work. I loved it because it was something you don't get to do every day. But I didn't see myself kind of envisioning kind of having to do that. Thank God my daughter, graduated Cornell with a degree sort of in that field. So she was helpful in trying to figure things out. But interesting times to go through that process for sure.
I think you were always kind of there's players you play with and you kind of know, hey, that guy's on a coaching track or that guy's this. You're kind of always earmarked to be something like where you ended up going, like management or GMs type of stuff. That's just your mind for the game, your mind for, it's kind of wild how you bypass the coaching part. I think people forget that you were on the bench for a couple of years and don't realize that was your part of your career. They just think you immediately went into the front office and were GM. I think all the things you had, I'm sure though when you did it, we talked about face-offs, we talked about that. I'm sure you helped so many players that way, but you got to have that real love for that part of it. And I think you were always an upstairs guy that was going to do that and run it. And basically the Hurricanes team that we've seen over these years was basically built by you before you ended up making the move and all the things that transition there. I mean, that was something that was your team that was put together that became successful. Now a perennial, team that's fighting for, one of the best in the East.
Yeah, no, it was certainly, I got to work 8 years under Jim Rutherford, and in a lot of different hats, like I said, so you learn a lot. And then, Jim had made the decision he was going to move to president and I was going to take over as GM. And then that lasted for a week until Pittsburgh offered the job. And then he came to Pittsburgh and you guys all know how that went. But yeah, no, it was an interesting time. We kind of had to rebuild and retool. And, financially we weren't the strongest franchise at that point. But I thought we were right on the verge of turning the last year. The floor of the payroll, the floor of the salary cap was $55 million. We were spending 52.8 because we had a buyout of Alexander Semin for $2 million that counted against our cap. And so that's what we were allowed to work with. And we lost 21 games that year by 1 goal. So we thought we were right there. We just, we get 10 more million or we get another player.
I gotta say, I guess that's wrong. A lot of times you might get a team. So I think what they accomplished early, you might come in after they've had a run and the cupboard can be kind of bare, right? Like not, so you're being nice about it because you're saying you literally had to almost rebuild to have them be successful. That's kind of how it had to take place. And to be in that like you said, 21 games by 1 goal, to me, that's a tough, you had a big road ahead to make it successful.
Yeah, no, and we had some pieces for sure, but we did a good job drafting and developing, and we were, like I said, we felt we were right there. You look at some of the pieces. We could have had Aho, Elias Lindholm, Jordan Stahl, Nick Waugh would have been our 4th centerman at one point, which is not a bad group of centers moving forward. But anyways, it kind of got to that point, and then Mr. Komanos ended up selling the team, and the new owner and I guess the best way to put it, he said it to me when I got fired. We couldn't be any more different as people. And I agreed, and it was time to move on. And, so I got let go. And then a couple of years later, Seattle called and I thought I was kind of done. And then I thought, chance to build one from scratch. You don't get to do that every day. So I was intrigued by the opportunity. And fortunately, my wife, Mary Lou, said, okay, I'm in for this. And we moved as far away from probably North Carolina as you can to the Pacific Northwest, but it's been a fun ride.
She must be a special lady.
Oh, she is. She is that. Yeah.
So you've got Ron Francis, Stanley Cup champion, Hall of Famer, National Italian American Sports Hall of Fame, Penguins Hall of Fame, but business executive, architect and engineer. That part, a lot of people wouldn't know. That's pretty special to have an opportunity to put not only a team on the ice, especially an expansion franchise, but to literally build it from ground up.
Yeah, and you know the part that people always forget about is we did a lot of that during COVID, right? Which is crazy. We had to do things. We're at risk of them kind of shutting down our project and our rink, which would have backed us up. So we had to do ways to make sure that was happening. Our first season, we didn't have enough players for a full American League thing, so we shared with Florida and Charlotte. Honestly, if the league hadn't shut down for a week, probably between Christmas and New Year's, I'm not sure we had enough players to play between injuries and COVID in Seattle and in Charlotte. So there was a lot of crazy things that happened, but maybe we should write a book at some point because it was a lot of fun and there's a lot of interesting stories.
For me, I look at if you have. And maybe we'll get to this because we have a second part of our show. We're lucky to have Ronnie for an extended period of time here. But I do want to talk about like how different the expansion draft was for you as it was versus what Vegas, that opportunity, I think is something I'd like to hear about, like what it was like as a GM when you realized, again, what was that whole draft like in that process?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was certainly different than Vegas. They went through theirs and teams had 4 years to prepare for us. More importantly, all the GMs learned from their process with Vegas and they weren't going to make the same mistakes. They weren't going to give up a good player or a high pick to stay away from something. Ours was kind of the opposite. They were saying, hey, if you want this guy, give us a first round pick or give us a second round pick. And as a new franchise starting out with 7 picks, that's not something we were willing to do. So we kind of thought about this ahead of time, had this conversation with owners and said, we're not going to get the same things Vegas got. We're going to have to do this a different way. We're going to have to draft and develop, and it's going to take a longer path for us to get there, whereas Vegas got all those pieces right out of the gate. And it's ironic, if you talk to George McPhee, he'll say that was their plan, was to sort of go and then flip things at the deadline, and then all of a sudden they had this great start, and they're like, wait a minute, we got to change our plan and start adding pieces. So that was a little bit different. The other thing that was different was Vegas had nobody sitting on the outside that could affect their expansion draft. The league, and it's not Vegas's fault. I petitioned the league asking them, I didn't think Vegas should be allowed to participate in our expansion draft. And the league denied our request on that. And they said that, that's something that's just part of it. And if you go look back, it was like a day or 2 days before the expansion draft, Vegas made 2 trades with teams that affected the expansion. Like we weren't allowed to take from Vegas because they were a previous expansion team, but it affected 2 or 3 of the teams that we were going to take from a day or 2 right before the draft. So didn't think that was, we weren't excited about that. Let's put it that way. So it was a little different in that regard, but to go through that process, I mean, you do that draft and literally, in less than 2 months or 3 months, we are trying to ship every player, their wife or significant other, their family, their dogs, their cars, their furniture, everything, get it to Seattle, get them all entrenched and stuff. We're doing this, as COVID was happening. It was a crazy time, but just an incredible experience to go through. But it was certainly different than what Vegas went through, for sure.
Yeah. You definitely should write a book. Not that you have enough free time to do that, but at some point, it's an incredible journey, Ron.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Appreciate your time. We have a special bonus opportunity with
Ronnie. Yes, he's offering us a little extended time, so we're very happy Ronnie could do this today.
The bodyguard threatened me. I had to stay.
Mario's bodyguard. Ask Aaron Rodgers of the Steelers. Was that your first encounter with Aaron?
It was. He was outstanding. I mean, the whole guy, the offensive line, the guys that were there with him, they're all great guys, and they all loved. I said that's what's so special about Pittsburgh, and I'm sure other cities too, but for Pittsburgh, for me, how all the sports teams are in tune with everybody else. Like they're there rooting on it. It's as a player, you love seeing the Pirates do good. You like seeing the Steelers do good, all that, and vice versa. That's the way it was. And they were great. Aaron Rodgers was, I can see why, he loves it here. He's enjoying his time here. Now they need to keep winning to make sure it's even happier, but it's he was really pleasant and great to talk to and very engaging we were talking about a lot of different things. Great guy. Very nice.
Ron, again, safe travels, and appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
The great Ron Francis on Offset, Larry and the Big Man, and we want to thank One Team Media. We've got Mark Coddington, Ryan Jurgen, and Logan Douglas, who helped produce this. Brian Hess is the mastermind with Odyssey Pittsburgh with Michael Spacciapoli.
Also, the Rourke Automotive Group, Dave Rourke, our head sponsor with us, along with Henderson Brothers and everybody that goes that way. We're very happy that they're being sponsors for us and part of it. So thank you. And Ronnie, thanks.
My pleasure. Thank you.
1 minute remaining in the third period. 1 minute. That's what I do, Ron. I'm just the voice that introduces the important people.
It's your show, Larry. Go ahead.
Offset, that's a wrap.
Yeah.